Okay, so now we're in the analytic geometry unit, which involves a lot of using the coordinate plane, a lot of graphing stuff. Some of it might be reviewed depending how depth you went into graphing in Algebra 1, or if you even remember how to do graphing stuff from Algebra 1, because some students forget. So this is the distance formula. You can pause the video and write it down. It's also on the formula sheet that I gave you. So we're going to be doing distance formula first. The distance and midpoint formula is very easy, but you need it to do more complicated things in this unit. So that's why they go over it first. So here you can just do the Pythag theorem. Whenever you have a diagonal line, yes, you can, use the coordinates of 2 points to find the distance between them, or you can just do the Pythag theorem. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units. 1, 2, 3. So remember the Pythag theorem is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. It's also on the formula sheet I gave you. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. 9 plus 36 equals c squared. Okay, so 36 plus 9 gets you 45. So your line is the square root of 45. Here, you're going to use the actual distance formula. So distance equals the square root of x2 minus x1 squared. Even if you did it backwards, you're going to get the same answer, right? You get -2 squared, which is 4. If you did it the other way, you're going to get 4 minus 2, which is still 2 squared. So it actually doesn't matter if you change these up. You still get the same answer, because remember, when you multiply two negatives, you still get a positive when doing exponents. And then y minus y2 minus y1 squared. Same thing here. If you mix them up, you still get 5 squared, which is 25. So this gets you -5 squared, which is still 25. The answer would be the square root of 29. Very easy formula. The only thing I would say is be careful with your integers. Usually when students mess up the distance formula, it's because they mess up their integers. So go over the first part of this unit and make sure you're good with that before going to the other parts. Because if you do not know how to do the Pythag theorem or distance formula or midpoint formula, you're going to have a hard time with some of this other stuff. So you want to make sure you have this down. Okay, so midpoint formula. It says find, point A is here and M is here. Point M is the midpoint. So this one is the midpoint. So this one's actually, it's kind of going backwards from the midpoint, but it's okay. So the midpoint formula, as we know, which is also on the formula sheet, is x1 plus x2. Let me just write it like that. Over 2, comma, y1 plus y2 over 2. So we already have the midpoint. It tells us the midpoint's at 0, 4. So we know this is equal to 0 and this is equal to 4, right? Because this is x, this is y, x comes before y, just like the alphabet, and that's what the midpoint formula is. You're looking for your midpoint, your middle point, which is xy. So we already know what x1 is. It's -7. So let's just put that here. We already know what y1 is. It's 5. So it's basically solving equations from here, right? It's -7 plus what over 2 gets you 0. You should know how to solve equations. That's why you take algebra 1 first. Multiply 2 to the other side, you get 0. Add 7, you get x is equal to 7, right? Because -7 plus 7 is 0. 0 divided by 2 is 0. So we know our midpoint, our other endpoint is going to be at 7 for x. For y, we have 5 plus, it's kind of hard to see drawing over here. 5 plus what over 2 gets us 4. Oops, let me write it like this. So multiply 2 to the other side, you get 8 minus 5, you get 3. So y equals 3. Right? Because 5 plus 3 is 8. 8 divided by 2 is 4. So our midpoint, sorry, I keep saying midpoint. Our other endpoint is at 7 for X and 3 for Y, which is right. If we were to graph it, it would be right here. This is our midpoint. You can also see this is 1 up and 8 over. This is 1 up and 8 over. Wait, no, sorry, I lied. This is 1 up and 7 over. That's 1 down and 7 over. So you could do it that way too, but what if sometimes you get like a decimal? What if it's like floating around somewhere randomly? Then you would, you want to do it the way that I did. So whatever works. Okay, now here we're going to be using the midpoint formula. So we have these 2 points. So we have -4. So let's add the x's together. -4 plus 6 over 2, comma. Let's add the y's. 8 plus 7 over 2. So this gets us 2 over 2, which is 1. This gets us 15 over 2, which is 7.5. So 1, 7.5 is our midpoint, which is right there. It's right on the line if you were to draw it. So 1, 7.5. So super easy formula. Practice, distance, and midpoint. Also remember the midpoint formula is here. It's also on the formula sheet I gave you. Okay, now dividing line segments. This is probably one of the harder things you'll do in this unit. A lot of students have a hard time with dividing line segments. I'm not sure why. Maybe because it's all the steps. The more steps, trickier it is to do. So it tells you that AB is 3/4 of AC. So it gave you that as a fraction, right? If you were to draw out AC, AB is 3/4 of that, right? This is 3/4. So how do we find it? Well, we're going to go from point A to C. So how many units up is it? It's 4 units up and 5 units to the right. So it's 4 units up and 5 units to the right. If we multiply both of these by 3/4, you would get 12 over 4, which is 3. So that means we need to go 3 units up from A. That's why we're multiplying by 3/4. We're trying to see, what is 3/4 of 4 units? And 3/4 of 4 units is 3. Okay, what's 3/4 of 5 units? 15 over 4. So let's just leave it as a fraction. So then we need to go 15 over 4 units to the right from point A. So 3 units up would be here. We know that it's going to be somewhere on this line. Okay, so A, let me change the color. So A was at -2, -3. So we went 3 units up, like it told us to do. Now we need to go 15/4 to the right. So if it's at -2, we're going to the right, so we're adding. So we're going to do -2 plus 15/4, which is 7/4. So we're going to be at 0 and 7/4. So 0 is our y, 7/4 is 1.75. That's our answer. So I did it, 0 was for x, right? Because remember we ended up here. So this is where it's at. So where's that point at? It's at 0 and 7/4. 7/4, like I said, as a decimal is 1.75. Okay, so the hard time that students have with these is these ratios here. They just don't understand. So this tells you it's a 4:5 ratio. It tells you AB to AC is 4:5. So that means the whole thing is 5, right? The whole thing is AC. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So when you're dealing with ratios, it's like a candy bar, right? You split it into 5 equal sections. AB is 4 of that. So it's 4/5, right? So careful with these ratios. Sometimes it might say AB to BC, so you have to be careful what it's saying. Okay, so here we don't have the graph, but we can still figure it out. We don't need the graph. So -3 to 2, if I were to, you could even sketch it on the graph if you want. -3, 4 would be up here, 2, -6 would be like here, right? It would look something like that. So, you know, if you sketch the graph. Okay, so -3 to 2 is 5 units, right? 5 units to the right. So you know that from A to C, it goes 5 units to the right, and it goes from 4 to -6, which is 10 units down. We need to multiply both of these by 4/5. Okay, 5 times 4/5 gets you 20/5, which is 4. And so I hope you all know how to, you know, do fractions. You got to know fractions, especially taking high school math. You're going to always deal with fractions. You can also use a calculator though if needed. 5 times 4/5 is 20/5, which is 4. 10 times 4/5 is 40/5, which is, I can't think right now. Hold on, 8. So you know you're going to go from point A, which is here. I'm going to go 4 to the right, which gets me, remember we did this in the transformations unit. That's why you did transformations. You gotta have to know how to, you know, move stuff on the graph, translating it. That's what basically we're doing. So we're going from -3 for 4 units, that would be at 1 for X. If I went 8 units down, that would be at -4. And that's my answer. So you do the same thing with each one, right? You want to see how far they are, multiply it by your fraction. Like I said, this is the part students mess up on. This says A to B is a 2 to 1 ratio, right? It tells you, let me kind of make it a little even. So it tells you A to B is 2 and B to C is 1. So there's 3 pieces altogether for this one. So this would be 2/3, right? So just practice these. You know, if you get them wrong, they'll show you how to do it. They do it the same way that I do. I think. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, they do. So it might be a little different, but just practice these. These are usually the hardest. So, you know, just take this, try doing this first section first. Once you're good with that, you will have an easier time with these finding area and perimeter on a coordinate plane. And this part is just kind of algebra 1 stuff, dealing with parallel and perpendicular lines. But first, just practice the first part of the unit. Let me know if you have any questions or need any additional videos.